Welcome to Open BxRx Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Kibin Alleyne, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. On January 9th, a high-rise fire killed 17 people at the Twin Parks Northwest Tower in the Bronx. Survivors are now speaking out about their experience following the events of that morning. Despite several promises from leaders in our city, survivor Yadhira Rodriguez joins me to discuss what life has really been like for her and her family after the fire. Yadhira, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So, in a previous interview, you mentioned you were the victim of the fire, and now you're still victims. It's been a few months since then. Can you let everybody know what life has been like since the fire and how this has actually changed your life?
All right. That statement was we were first victims of fire. Now we are victim of the system because we are still in a limbo in terms of housing and um, immediate needs. And as everyone knows, we were counting on the mayor's fund, which hasn't been reimbursed yet. We are still waiting, and life has been uncertain since January 9. And when you lose everything in a second, and then you're left behind with just the the feeling of what if and what can happen, what's going to happen tomorrow. It's very uncertain. Again, we all have families. Most of us have kids. Our kids don't deserve this, but we are trying our best to manage the day by day needs and basis.
So, as we know, yourself as well as many others, like you mentioned, are still basically just recovering from this, event. Can you tell us what was promised to you and the other tenants? Because we saw in the news a lot of officials saying things, and I think when people watch the news, it happens, and then for us, for many people who are not in the situation, it goes away. But can you actually tell us from your experience what was promised to you and the other tenants?
We were promised many things. Again, we were promised housing. um, Immediately, we were promised that no one was going to be forced to go back to the building. Um, I know a lot of people that has been back in the building because the lack of effort from our authorities to find housing for them. We were promised that this mayor fund were going straight to the victims. That has not been the case. Whatever the majors had released, it went through Bronx Works for them to micromanage everything, and we still waiting. Again, I know on Friday the majors released a media and stated that these funds were going again to the victims through Bronx Works now, but we haven't received a call. We haven't received anything, and we are still in a limbo.
Wow. So, can you just explain when you first knew something wasn't right? Because I know a lot of people are kind of upset with how the city is handling this. But from your perspective, when did you first realize, okay, things are taking a little bit longer than I expected, or something just isn't right?
Okay, so the fire happened on it was Sunday the 9th until the 20th. I can't recall the exact date, but it was late January when they called us to release some of the funds. It was $2,000. I'm like, $2,000? That doesn't sound right because, as per what we knew, the mayor's fund had millions of dollars. The first few days we had access to see how much, well, everyone had access to see how much it was. It was over 2.5 millions, and 2.5 divided into 120, just doing basic math, you know, simple. It wasn't $2,000. $2,000, 2,050 because they cover the $50 for any ATM withdrawals. So it was 2,050 plus 200 and just for food and another card that didn't add up. It was around 200,000, nothing compared to 2.5 million. And that was only on January. Then now we just found out after the pressure that media has been putting into the Measures Fund that is over 4 millions. 4 millions, again, doing simple math, still not adding up.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I didn't know that this was happening. As I mentioned, a lot of people saw the news and expected, like, oh, wow, okay, they raised all this money for people. But it's so interesting to hear the other side of that coin that you guys aren't receiving what you expect. I did read that the mayor, like you mentioned, he did raise more funds. What would you like to see them do in regards to that situation, just to make it a little bit easier for yourself and many of the other survivors?
I know that if this money goes straight to the families, again, divided 120, 150, how many families were in the building? How many families were affected by this? Divide that money, and I know that it will make it a lot easier for us to find housing for our kids, our families that are still in hotels, shelters, and staying with family members. It's a lot to carry. And again, we have little kids. I have a newborn, and I know this is not what my son deserves.
So yeah, I'm so happy that you actually brought that up because I wanted to know, have you actually been able to receive? I know it hasn't been the best help, but you're also a new mom, and I know that it's not easy just in general, but in this specific situation, I can only imagine it's a little bit harder. Can you tell us, has the city been able to support you as a new mother as well, or do you feel that they're lacking in that area?
While they lacking in all the areas. The support I have been receiving is from nonprofit organizations like Bronx Mutual Aid and the Gambian Youth Organization. The city has done nothing, at least not in my case.
Wow. And I wanted to touch on a little bit about the apartment because your apartment was actually amongst those that were horribly affected by the fire. However, I was so shocked to hear in an interview you mentioned that you're still expected to pay rent. And I know this may be a shocker to so many people. Can you tell me more about that?
This is something that no one can make up. We received the it was in February, we received the paper underneath the door. So if you haven't been in the building, you gotta go and pick it up. That we were supposed to start paying rent, but because of the request of nonprofit organizations, they waived the month. Then another notice was received at the end of the month to start paying the rent in March. Then 2 weeks later, they yes, it was 2 weeks later when they sent out another note that the month was going to be waived. But as of now, we all know that starting April 1st, we have to pay rent.
Wow, that's really unfortunate. And, I think it makes me sad to hear that, this is another stressor that, many people like yourself have to think about. I understand that yourself, along with so many people, just haven't been happy with how the city's handling this. It's been so long now and it's still the same situation. Can you just explain what you would like to see from the city and what they can actually do to help you?
Well, since day one, all I asked was for a list of landlords that can and will receive this voucher that they provided us with. It was simple. Private landlords that didn't have anything to do with this landlord that where we live. That's one. And another one, we were sent all to La Central, where it's in a drug infested area. where nobody wants to raise a kid, nobody wants to bring their family there. Some people were forced by the situation to take an apartment there. I would like the city to at least step up with this and provide us with private housing. There's plenty of landlords that can take this program and help us rebuild our lives.
And I know that, I guess, speaking from the media standpoint, many victims were disappointed with the mainstream media handling of this story, because, as I mentioned, you see it in the news and then it's gone, and it looks like they put a bow on it and everything's okay. But when you look deeper into it, it's not. What is something that you would like to say to everyone watching right now?
Not everything is okay. Including family members believe that we are being taken care and that we're gonna have it so easy that everything is fine. They received all these funds, and New York is a rich state. Yes, New York is, and it, handles a lot of funds, but it's not going straight to the victims, especially that mayor's fund that was raised for us supposedly. We still haven't received anything, and not everything is okay. A lot of people don't have food. A lot of people don't have access to even having their laundry done. It's a lot of things that are going on. These motels that we were placed at were infested with bedbugs. Bedbugs is a common thing in New York, and we all know that. But after going through this, why you have to put your kids
Right.
through deal with bed bugs and other things? Why can the city put people in decent shelters?
Wow.
This is something that we have access to.
Jahira,
You know,
thank you so much for joining me. And I'm really saddened to hear some of these things. And I want everybody to know, what many of you are all going through, because I think the more people know about it, the more we can actually help. But once again, thank you so much for joining me. And I hope we can stay in contact soon, or, keep in touch. But yes, thank you so much for sharing your story.
and
We'll be right back with more Open BxRx Tuesday.